I'm going to live with my parents starting today. If you don't like it, we can divorce and you can leave." Jeff stood proudly and looked at me with a smirk on his face. "Then you're fired. Get out of the company." I confronted Jeff with my true feelings. Sighing softly, I gave Jeff a cold stare. When he saw my eyes, he stiffened visibly. Anxiety spread across his expression. "I am Kelly Thompson, 44 years old. I run a company that manufactures vehicles and parts. The company was founded by my grandfather, and I am the third generation. It is a family-run business. Initially, I intended to lead a normal life and had no intention of taking over the company. I was not a great student and planned on finding a regular job in a general company. In fact, I did get a job in an IT company. However, when I was 26, my parents died unexpectedly in an accident. I have an older brother who loves research and was holed up in a graduate lab. My father left a will stating that I was to be the next president of the company. Afterwards, it felt like riding a roller coaster. I quit my current job and joined my father's company. The executive vice president acted as president, and I learned the job with dedication. I worked tirelessly, sparing little time for sleep, learning everything about the products and management of the company. Initially, everyone treated me with kid gloves as if I were a delicate lady. But gradually, they began to open up to me. Slowly, the work became interesting, and I became president when I was 40. I have lived dedicated to my job. As those around me got married one after another, I had not had a single boyfriend. I prioritized work over having fun. I traveled domestically and abroad for the company, often forgetting even Thanksgiving or Christmas. Relatives began to nag me about finding a successor. Every time I met relatives at memorial services, they would insensitively remind me that I wouldn't be able to have children if I didn't hurry. "Aren't you lonely?" some would ask. Even if I argued back, I knew what would come next. I just smiled bitterly and quickly left the scene. My dedication to the company had led to steadily rising business performance. Incorporating IT was a big step. I finally had some spare time and started enjoying leisure activities. That's when I met Jeff, my husband, at a bowling alley. Someone from a client company recommended it, and I took it up lightly. But it suited my personality, and I got completely hooked. I even had my own ball and shoes and started participating in tournaments. Jeff was often at the bowling alley. He was fun to talk to and taught me many things I didn't know. We even competed in pairs in tournaments. After that, we went out to eat several times, and during one of those meals, he confessed his feelings, and we started dating. Jeff is the same age as me but looks young enough to be mistaken for someone in his 20s. I was often mistaken for his older sister. "I must seem unreliable, huh?" Each time, Jeff would be embarrassed. Jeff had many hobbies. He liked watching and playing sports, like baseball, soccer, and golf. Influenced by him, I also started playing golf. Not just sports, he would invite me to concerts and kabuki theater too. Jeff introduced me to worlds I had never known before. Time spent with Jeff was very exciting and enjoyable for me. Having a boyfriend for the first time at 44. It wouldn't be strange if I felt elated. I was in such a light-hearted mood every day when Jeff said something unexpected. "Would you meet my parents?" I was speechless at his sudden request. "If I marry, it'll be with you. I want to introduce you to my parents." It was only about 2 months since we officially started dating. It seemed a bit early, but I was also not young. It wasn't that I wasn't anxious. There was confusion, but I was also happy. I had no intention of refusing. A week later, we visited Jeff's parents' house. The house was neatly arranged and had a faintly pleasant smell. In the living room, Jeff's father and mother welcomed us. Jeff's mother had an elegant look with her hair dyed a beautiful purple. "I'm so happy my son is dating such a lovely person." She was beaming with joy. "She really is a wonderful young lady." Receiving so much praise made my back itch. Jeff's parents continued to compliment me so much that I blushed. Beside me, Jeff looked proud. Right? Finding someone like her at 44 is a real find. Jeff was smiling, but I felt something off about his comment. A sense of unease began to spread in my chest. However, Jeff and his parents were laughing happily. I thought I could get along well with such wonderful parents after marriage. The anxiety I had felt earlier vanished. However, I noticed that Jeff still called his parents mommy and daddy. I used to call my parents mommy and daddy too. But I wondered if it was common for a grown man to do so. It seemed rare. Maybe I'm just not aware of what's normal. Having lost my parents early and being focused solely on work, I was somewhat ignorant of social norms. Feeling out of place might be because I'm unaware of common sense. I decided not to worry about it. Jeff must be very close to his parents. He praises his mother a lot. That in itself is probably a good thing. But then, during a conversation about cooking, Jeff said something that felt off. "Mommy's meat and potatoes are the best in the world." Furthermore, he lightly belittled the meat and potatoes I made. "Your meat and potatoes are somewhat inferior to Mommy's." Hearing this, I couldn't keep a smile on my face. That's right, it's a good opportunity to ask her for the recipe. Jeff's way of speaking was also different from usual. Why was he acting so superior? Unaware of my ambiguous expression, he was exchanging smiles with his mother. Jeff's mother took out a notebook and began writing down the recipe for meat and potatoes. "With this, you can make something similar to Mommy's meat and potatoes." I was unsure whether I should be happy or not. Before I knew it, my expression had turned into the ambiguous smile I show to relatives. As it was getting dark outside, the conversation turned to marriage. "I want to get married right away. It would make life easier, and being a part-timer really makes it tough to earn." I was shocked by this revelation. What? Part-timer? My eyes widened. Jeff had said he was in sales. I hadn't told him about my job either. I just mentioned that I work at a company that manufactures parts. I found it hard to say that I was the president, but I never imagined Jeff was a part-timer. As I stood there dumbfounded, Jeff confronted me. "You thought, despite being 44, right?" There's a deep reason for this. Apparently, Jeff's mother has always been frail and often ill. Furthermore, 2 years ago, his father became seriously ill and required care level 1. At that time, Jeff was working as a salesperson at a printing company. But he quit to take care of his father. He became a part-timer to have flexible hours to continue caring for his father. It's tough for Mommy alone. I just wanted to help my parents as much as I could. Jeff was tearful as he spoke. I listened solemnly. For that reason, I thought it would be okay to remain a part-timer. Jeff glanced at his parents and nodded. Lately, Daddy has been feeling better. So he's thinking of re-employment and I'm going to marry Kelly. I've got to try hard. Jeff said this almost in a whisper while sniffling. I felt ashamed for being disappointed when I heard he was a part-timer. Jeff had simply prioritized his parents over his job. What a kind and warm person he is. All the anxieties and discomfort I had felt before had completely vanished. A few days later, I made a proposal to Jeff. "Why don't you try taking the mid-career exam at my company?" Jeff seemed surprised by my sudden suggestion. "Only if it's okay with you, Jeff." I made sure not to pressure him. Jeff seemed resistant to working at the same company as me. Our sales department seems to be short-staffed. It would really help if you could join. I chose my words carefully to not hurt Jeff's pride. It's a completely different department from mine though. But Jeff's concerns were elsewhere. If I'm going to work, I want to earn. I want to make sure mommy is secure. Money was his top priority. Perhaps he thought I wasn't earning much. Then, I pulled out a tablet and showed Jeff the company's job site. I explained the average salary, holidays, paid leave, and benefits. This might not be too bad. Jeff looked at the tablet intently and seemed to be getting interested. Just as the company was planning to significantly increase its sales staff, Jeff was successfully hired. When Jeff applied, I had already informed my secretary about this. I might ask the secretary to handle any potential issues in the future. I also made another request regarding the website to my secretary. When Jeff got the job, Jeff and I registered our marriage. We didn't have a ceremony. I didn't want my relatives to know, and I wanted to keep it a secret from Jeff that I was the president. I thought the in-laws would object, but they were surprisingly supportive. The only concern Jeff's mother had was how often we could visit the in-laws. We replaced the ceremony with a dinner at a restaurant and postponed our honeymoon. My work was busy, but Jeff also seemed unenthusiastic about the honeymoon. I can't be away from mommy and daddy. Again, mommy and daddy. I couldn't shake off the discomfort. Regarding the new house, although a real estate agent introduced us to a new detached house, we decided against it. Considering Jeff was a part-timer, it felt better to avoid unnecessary expenses. I hesitated a bit but chose my apartment as our new home. Jeff agreed. It was probably because it was close to his parents' house. After moving in and starting to live together, Jeff's attitude changed. He began to look down on me. "What department are you in?" He stopped calling me honey and mostly referred to me as a you. Jeff clearly did not think of me as an executive. I didn't intend to lie and hide it, but I wanted to keep it as unknown as possible. At that moment, Jeff said something unbelievable. "Well, whatever. I guess you'll have to quit anyway." I was shocked. "What? Quit? Who is quitting? What does that mean? Is it not Jeff but me who is quitting? I have a bad feeling about this." Jeff glanced at me and smirked. That unfamiliar smile was incredibly ugly, and I shuddered. Suddenly, I felt a chill. "What? Got a problem?" Jeff stared at me coldly. My heart rate increased. I held my chest and somehow conveyed that I had no intention of quitting my job. At that moment, something occurred to me. Perhaps Jeff wants children. "Are you thinking about what will happen when we have a child? My company has excellent maternity and paternity leave." Jeff interrupted me with something unbelievable. "Kids are out of the question. I'm already overwhelmed with mommy and daddy." I couldn't understand Jeff's words and tilted my head. Then Jeff sighed heavily in exasperation. "It's my parents I'm talking about. Didn't I tell you? They need care." Startled by his sudden loud voice, I stiffened. Regaining my composure, I managed to respond. "I heard about your father's condition. But he's been doing well lately, so didn't you reapply for jobs because of that? Even if they're okay, now, both are elderly." Jeff started to get angry as if ignited. "Aren't you worried at all?" Despite being a daughter-in-law, Jeff's shouting filled the room. I was confused and didn't quite understand what he meant. I tried to calm down and sort out my thoughts. It seemed Jeff was trying to push the care of his parents onto me. Moreover, he intended to make me quit my job to focus on caregiving. After venting his anger, Jeff smirked. "Well, I'm not saying you should quit right away. It's better to have dual income, after all. It seems my income is now a priority. From now on, we'll go back to my parents' house on days off. Every week." I intended to help as much as I could. But being pushed to do caregiving every week was unexpected. What shocked me most was Jeff's attitude. Before our marriage, Jeff was a fun-loving person with many hobbies. Always finding joy in everything. He was always positive and dependable. I was lost for words at how much he had changed. There had been an opportunity with a real estate agent who contacted us about a new detached house near his parents' home. Moreover, it was highly sought after, and I had already signed the contract. I hoped that living there might change Jeff. I was becoming less enthusiastic about visiting his in-laws' home. However, the in-laws were always happy to welcome me. Glad you could come. I've got some cookies here. Let's eat them together. His smile was so broad that the corners of his eyes drooped. I'm sorry to bother you on your day off coming here. The mother-in-law was very considerate towards me. No, not at all. It feels like my daughter has come to visit when Kelly is here. Tears of joy appeared in her eyes, and I felt a warmth in mine too. After all, I thought I should proceed with the discussion about the new house. With these in-laws, I would be okay. Every time I visited, the mother-in-law prepared my favorite sweets. Her thoughtfulness always touched my heart. I didn't like being dictated by Jeff, but seeing the mother-in-law's happy face always soothed me. After some time being married, Jeff and I started visiting his parents separately. Due to my work schedule, it was impractical to visit every weekend. Sometimes, I had to spend weekends away on business trips. To make up for it, I began visiting during the weekdays. One weekday, I headed to the in-laws' house. I had visited so many times that I didn't ring the doorbell. I quietly said, "Excuse me," as I opened the door and headed towards the living room. A familiar voice came from the living room. It was Jeff. Though Jeff was supposed to be at work, I wondered why he was here as I walked down the hall. Just as I was about to enter the living room, I heard a disturbing conversation. I paused and quietly observed the living room. She's really not attentive. And she's terrible at housekeeping. This voice was the mother-in-law's. I had never heard her speak so spitefully before. Couldn't you find someone better? She sounded like a completely different person from the usually kind mother-in-law. Such a mean way of speaking made my chest tighten and breathing difficult. The blood drained from my hands, turning them cold. After all the praise she had given me, I couldn't believe this gentle mother-in-law would say such things. Although I didn't want to hear any more, my feet wouldn't move. I could hear Jeff's creepy, cajoling voice. "Sorry, Mommy. But she's pretty robust, so she should be able to handle physical work." What an awful way to talk. My disgust for Jeff was growing. It's all about training. Teach her well and she'll be useful. What does he think I am? I am neither Jeff's nor their slave. For now, she brings in money, so we have to put up with her. I hope for more in the future. Jeff and his mother were freely talking and laughing. I felt the blood draining from my head. Unable to stand, I leaned against the wall in the hallway for support. I was shocked by the mother-in-law's words, despite Jeff's usual behavior. What happened to her usual consideration for me? I remembered how kindly she had treated me. What about the times we ate sweets and laughed together? What about the meals she taught me to cook? She was always smiling, sometimes with tears in her eyes. Was all that just an act? If so, staying in this marriage because I was worried about the mother-in-law was completely pointless. From the conversation between Jeff and his mother, it was clear I was merely seen as a caretaker. Moreover, the mother-in-law had said something decisive. For now, I'll praise her and butter her up. That way, she makes such a happily foolish face. I started to feel dizzy. The mother-in-law's harsh words towards me wouldn't stop. Learn from me on how to manipulate well. Also, she apparently bought a new house near here. Jeff spoke with excitement. I wondered where he had heard that. A call came from the real estate agent to our house. I was taken aback. The real estate agent had called our home phone. It was my mistake for not insisting on contact via my cell phone. That's great. Now we can make her work even harder. The mother-in-law's scornful laughter made me feel nauseous. After hearing this much, I quietly headed towards the front door and left the house. I was gripping my smartphone so tightly that my hand had gone numb. On the way home, I sent a message to Jeff and his mother saying I suddenly felt unwell. If I had known it would come to this, I would have never married. The word divorce was on my mind. I'm someone who acts immediately once I decide. I always choose to regret doing something rather than regretting not doing it. Society might frown upon a quick divorce. But I thought it better sooner than spending time with unpleasant people. I couldn't stand living with Jeff any longer. I prepared the divorce papers right away. I decided to cancel the new house as well. If not handled carefully, I could end up losing my assets in property division or compensation claims. However, I thought I could manage with the evidence of Jeff's emotional abuse. I have both a competent lawyer and a faithful secretary. Once resolved, I started to act more cautiously. I avoided confronting Jeff and continued to act submissive. According to a report from my secretary, Jeff had caused several problems at work. It seems this was just the tip of the iceberg. A divorce alone doesn't seem to settle everything with Jeff. I want to quickly resolve the issues at work and then hurry up and get the divorce over with. I'll keep it a secret that I am the president of the company. It would cause trouble if Jeff or his parents found out before the divorce. It was embarrassing, but I told my secretary everything about the situation with Jeff. With the secretary's help, I am steadily preparing for the divorce. Living with Jeff felt suffocating. I hardly felt alive. Eventually, when things started to look up, I ran into Jeff at work. Good timing. As soon as he saw me, Jeff approached me with a big smile and pulled me into an empty meeting room. You're hiding something from me, aren't you? Jeff's sneering laughter sent shivers down my spine. I heard you bought a house. I got the call that it's ready to move in. I sighed involuntarily. So that was it. I'm going to live with my parents starting today. If you don't like it, we can divorce and you can leave. I was completely fed up. It seems the time has come for me to confront Jeff. He stood boldly, grinning at me confidently. Jeff thinks I will admit defeat and obey him. Until recently, I listened to him for the sake of his mother. I thought his parents were good people who cared about me. But now that I know his mother's true nature, I have no intention of opening my heart to his parents. Then you're fired. Get out of the company. I faced Jeff's shouting with a smile and hit him with the truth. Huh? Jeff made a baffled expression and let out a strange sound. But he probably thought it was just a weird joke. He quickly recovered and started to laugh foolishly. Fired? What are you talking about? You're not even my boss. Have you gone crazy? I sighed softly and stared coldly at Jeff. Seeing my eyes, Jeff stiffened. Anxiety spread across his expression. I took a deep breath and spoke calmly. The crazy one is you, not knowing the face of your own company's president. I showed Jeff the company newsletter. There, in a president's interview, was my photo. Jeff stared at the newsletter as if to burn a hole through it, then compared it to my face. You. No way, that's a lie, right? Jeff muttered, his face draining of color. Finally got it? Jeff seemed to lose all strength and slumped down on the spot. Shit, it's not like that, Kelly. I didn't know anything. His voice was pitifully shaky. Recently, I was referred to by my name, Kelly, instead of as a you. But now, being called by my name feels disgusting. Didn't know? No, you just didn't bother to know. He could have known any time if he wanted to. The newsletter was even placed in the company's break room and cafeteria. If he had searched on his smartphone or PC, my photo would have come up immediately. Even if the company website was deleted, my photo could still be found easily. Simply put, Jeff had no interest. Nor was he passionate about his work. Because of this, Jeff was relegated to menial tasks in the company rather than sales. He had no particular attachment to his job description. The only important things for Jeff at the company were income, vacations, and benefits. To him, I must have been just another unimportant person. Of course, that wasn't enough for me. It's not over yet. We haven't finished talking about the divorce. Jeff is visibly shaken. Do you even know what you're saying? He probably never thought I would agree to a divorce. Yes, I can't be the ideal wife you want. So, divorce is the only option. I took the divorce papers out of my bag. I've had them ready ever since I decided to divorce. Do you understand what you're doing? Jeff, in disbelief, looked back and forth between the divorce papers and me. I took out a pen and placed it on the table. Hurry up and sign. Jeff froze, his face drained of color. Oh, not divorcing? Were you just talking big? Seemingly coming to his senses, Jeff slammed the divorce papers on the table and hastily signed them. I watched him sign and said, "Now we are strangers." I stated flatly, "Don't come to regret it." A wife who talks back is a disgrace to her husband. Jeff spoke with disdain. Good riddance. A woman who chooses work over her parents, I'm glad to be rid of her. Jeff continued to complain bitterly. Oh, my apologies for that. I calmly dismissed his complaints. What are you going to do after the divorce? Think of how sad my parents will be. Do you realize how lonely they'll be without you? Lonely? They were talking bad about me together. Anger blazed inside me. I was so angry I couldn't find the right words. I wanted to lash out at Jeff right there, but instead, I just clenched my teeth and glared at him. Taking my silence as a cue, Jeff continued to berate me. Poor thing, Mommy just told me she's hungry and there's nothing to eat. So what? There are some stores and supermarkets near their house. You should go back to your parents' home. You can still make things right. Jeff arrogantly instructed me. His parents are not so infirm that they need care. That's just their indulgence. I wish they would stop. We are strangers now. And I have an important meeting to attend to today. I managed to speak. My anger reached a peak, and oddly, it calmed me down. If it's that important, you should take off work and go yourself. I refuse to be sacrificed for Jeff and his parents. There's no way I could leave my important company for such people. I've been patient and obedient for too long. That should be enough. Jeff, seemingly not expecting me to talk back, took a step back. You're talking back to me? Out of your place as a wife. I've said it multiple times, but I'm no longer your wife. Jeff has skewed values. He thinks a wife is a husband's slave, meant to obey silently. Moreover, he only imposes on me what suits him. Out of my place as a wife? Who do you think you are? I didn't hesitate to confront Jeff. Jeff gritted his teeth in frustration. They're your parents, right? Why don't you take care of them yourself before dumping them on someone else? If his mother is so important, Jeff should take time off and go to her himself. Jeff's job was supposed to be organizing the supply closet in the office. There are no deadlines or appointments with other companies. He could easily take a day off if he talked to his boss, but he pushes it onto me. His mother's condition can't be that bad. He just wants to boss me around. It's utterly ridiculous. Why should I have to beg off work and go there? It's his own parents we're talking about, yet he's so dependent on others. Jeff's selfish reasoning seems endless. Listen up. Taking care of mommy and daddy is your job. I'm sick of him calling them mommy and daddy. What exactly do you expect from me? I don't expect a sensible answer, but I asked Jeff anyway. Jeff snorted through his nose and answered. You're supposed to take care of mommy and daddy, all of it. I couldn't believe Jeff would say something so outrageous. How shameless can he be? I'm a stranger now. You should take time off and go yourself. I told Jeff something perfectly reasonable. Jeff choked up. He seems at a loss for words. Instead of dumping it on me, he should just take the time off himself. Doing nothing and then complaining about it is just wrong. So anyone would have been fine as long as they took care of your parents, right? Jeff's face turned pale as he shook his head, his mouth agape. That's not true. If I knew you were the president, I would never have asked you to do caregiving. Just a moment ago, he said, out of your place as a wife, and now he's flipping the script. I know he really just wants to use me as he pleases. That's why he's trying to flatter me now. But with his next words, Jeff reveals his true intentions. With enough money, we could just hire someone. That's the bottom line. Jeff always relies on others. So, you're leaving the caregiving to someone else? You're just going to play and enjoy life with mommy? That's not true. Jeff retorts with a forced smile. But if they had manipulated me better, maybe that could have been my future. The thought is chilling. What if I hadn't known the true nature of Jeff's parents? I might have happily agreed to his suggestions. There could have been a possibility where Jeff dedicated himself to caregiving. And I was the breadwinner. Jeff threw away that chance himself. For me, perhaps it was a blessing in disguise. Jeff looked up at me with teary eyes. Please, let's try again. We were good together, weren't we? Let's go to all those places again. I remember all the places Jeff took me on dates before we were married. Every place you took me to was fun. Jeff's face brightens, perhaps thinking there's a chance. And I was a fool to be deceived by that. It's been hell since we got married. I glanced at my watch ostentatiously. Well, I have to prepare for a meeting. I'll contact you about the dismissal. I waved casually at Jeff and reached for the door to leave the meeting room. Before I could open the door, Jeff grabbed my left hand. Turning around, I saw Jeff glaring at me. We're not done talking yet. You tell me I'm fired and, on top of that, divorced? How am I supposed to accept that? Tears welled up in his eyes as he confronted me. And what's this about you being the president? He couldn't finish his sentence, and eventually, Jeff let go of my hand. It was Jeff who first brought up divorce. And it was because of you all that I couldn't confess that I was the president. Jeff probably didn't think I would accept the divorce. He thought that by threatening divorce, I would comply with his demands. And my being the president must have shocked him. This is no way for an adult to behave. Jeff is gritting his teeth. He seems to regret losing the money, but that's not my concern. You were just foolish, that's all. At my words, Jeff snapped, shouting back in a shrill voice. Coward. How can a big company president fire an employee just because they're getting a divorce? That's tyrannical. Whether he's lost his reason or he's just defiant, Jeff puffed out his chest. His thinking is too childish. It seems like he's just throwing a tantrum because he can't accept what I'm saying. I'm too tired to deal with Jeff, and I involuntarily held my head. Seeing this, Jeff flashed a pleased grin. Hit the nail on the head, didn't I? Want me to make it public? You'd be in trouble then. I'm fed up. I thought about remaining silent but instead pulled a piece of paper from my bag. I read the names written on it. Ms. Smith from General Affairs, Ms. Miller and Ms. Irving from Sales, and Ms. Reed from Accounting. After saying this, I looked over at Jeff. He was sweating. There are more names, you know. Jeff backed away toward the window. The names I just mentioned are women you've persistently hit on. This issue was reported to me by my secretary. The HR department had received complaints, which the secretary informed me about. In the company, only my secretary knew Jeff and I were married. I couldn't believe it when I first heard it. My own husband was hitting on several female employees. And apparently, he was quite insistent. I was embarrassed and blushed at the thought of it. I was just trying to deepen my connections with fellow employees. Such a pathetic excuse. Does he really think he can get away with that? Inviting them to a hotel, what kind of networking was that? Jeff could only mumble in response. I had received messages sent to their smartphones as evidence from the women. The content was embarrassingly cringeworthy. Jeff can't escape the truth with any excuse. He needs to face appropriate consequences. It's my job as president to remove someone who causes trouble for other employees. I spoke firmly to Jeff. Jeff hung his head in defeat. To press further, I took an envelope from my bag. This is from accounting. Your expense receipts. They seem to have been tampered with. I handed the envelope with the receipts to Jeff. Reluctantly, Jeff took it and avoided my gaze. A mama's boy who relies on others, a womanizer, and on top of that, a cheapskate. Jeff has caused trouble for many others besides me. The fact that he is a despicable person is undeniable, but I had once believed in him. I'm so disappointed in my poor judgment of character. Anyway, you are fired. You will be held accountable. I turned on my heel and opened the door to the meeting room. True to form, Jeff did not try to stop me this time. He just slumped weakly against the wall. Well then. Enjoy your time with your parents at your family home. Jeff collapsed on the spot, his shoulders sagging, muttering something under his breath. But I left him there and exited the room. Shortly after, a formal report came from my secretary. Following the report, I immediately proceeded with Jeff's dismissal for misconduct. I apologized to the female employees who were affected, on behalf of the president. Through my secretary, I ensured they received proper mental health care. I also receive regular reports about Jeff's activities through a private investigator, managed by my secretary. According to these reports, Jeff, now unemployed, has moved back to live with his in-laws. He tried to work again as a part-timer, but then something unexpected happened. His father was classified as needing level 2 care. Soon after, his mother developed dementia. Jeff ended up caring for both his father and mother. It seems his mother wanders at night, resulting in many sleepless nights for Jeff. His days are filled with work and then caregiving, a schedule too demanding for anyone. I need help. Please provide some financial assistance. Jeff contacted me numerous times. If the divorce had been amicable, I might have helped. However, Jeff and his family treated me like a slave. There's no room for sympathy for such people. Each time, I responded to Jeff with a formal tone. I'm unable to assist you. Please refrain from any further contact. Should it continue, appropriate actions will be taken. After that, I no longer received any messages from Jeff. Convinced that I was done with marriage after my divorce from Jeff, I resolved to live alone. I kept the new house I had bought, renting it out. The land is likely to increase in value, so it's unlikely I'll face any losses. Work is going well, and the company's performance is improving. Work has become more of a passion than ever before. However, the one thing Jeff taught me that I can't give up is bowling. I still compete in tournaments and have joined a community circle at the bowling alley. Most of the members are older than me, rich in life experience, from from whom I learn a lot. Recently, a man about my age joined. Unlike Jeff, he's calm, modest, and quiet. Yet, his face lights up with joy whenever he scores a strike. And I find myself secretly thrilled watching him. For now, I keep telling myself that my work is my passion. Someday, happiness will come my way too. With this hope, I continue to dedicate myself to my work today.